Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about intense love, why we crave it, how it sometimes becomes toxic, and what to do about this. Watch this video. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new, please click the little subscribe button, the bell to receive new videos when I release them. And if you've been with me for a while, thank you so much and welcome back. Today I want to talk about intense love. You've heard me before talk about love addiction, or what I often call attachment regulation issues, right? If we're not securely attached, we have a hard time regulating ourselves and our emotions if we're not attached to another. And so we become addicted to these love cycles so we can feel calm, so we can feel soothed, self-soothed. And so in a lot of love addiction, people become really intensely connected. There's this intensity to the love, this crazy passion. And oftentimes people will come to me and say, I don't want someone healthy because it's boring. I want this intense person. I want this pattern. This is what I crave. I don't crave that with healthy people. And there's a reason for that, because this intensity is when you've had to grow up kind of tolerating sort of neglect, emotional neglect or abandonment. Rejection's in there somewhere as well. Sometimes we talk about skin starvation, where you're actually starved for physical touch. That's part of this as well. We also talk about lacking appropriate affection in childhood. And so then we're just seeking it all the time. And people who are intensely in love or love intensely are usually very connected physically as well, because they've both lacked that or they've both been neglected of that. So intense love, in my opinion, is what we crave when we're trying to escape our pain. I had a client last week who was telling me about the intensity of the relationship that she was in, and she's thinking about divorcing, and she can't let go because the good times were so good and the bad times were so bad. And she goes, but why is it so hard to let go? And I said, because with that intense love, when things are so amazing, it really messes with our dopamine levels. And then when that is taken away, that push-pull cycle we talk about a lot, when it's taken away, there's such a big void that you crave that level of intensity again, so that cycle continues. You can never feel just harmonious or zen because it's not enough, because it's not going to make up for the dopamine levels that have just dropped because of the loss of this intensity, right? That's how we get into trauma bonds as well. So I asked her, I said, okay, why do you think you crave such intensity in your love life? Why do you think that intense love is the thing that you want, even though it's caused you pain? What do you think that's about? She sat there and she said, I don't know, a lack of love in my life. I said, well, see how you feel right now with him gone. He's gone. He's doing the cycle again where he's gone. How do you feel? She's like, I'm depressed. I can't sleep. I've had anxiety. She's had all the things. And I said, what are your coping mechanisms? Well, he's not there. He's the Band-Aid, right? So what are the coping mechanisms that you pick up when he's gone? She's like, well, I smoke weed. I drink a lot of caffeine. And what's the other thing? Oh, she's like, I obsess over calling people. She has to be on the phone. She has to constantly be in contact with someone. And I said, none of those things are wrong. They're just your coping mechanisms to fill that void. So if I were to ask you again, what do you think that intense love is doing for you? She's like, oh, yes. It's how you escape your pain. Because without him there, without that intensity, you're doing things to not have to feel this sadness. The sadness is not because he's gone. The sadness is because the Band-Aid of your pain is now gone. Because that intensity, what does the intensity do? It puts us into this fantasy, right? It puts us into this oxytocin. It puts us into this false reality of this high. Because when we don't, and we think that's our savior. And when we don't have that high, we don't have that intensity, those feelings filter in because there's nothing to sort of shock us out of it. That adrenaline rush that we need to get us out of our baseline reality is lacking. And that's why a lot of people have addictions and stuff, but this is this is the love addiction, which is craving that affection, craving that love from someone else so that you can love yourself. See, that's the biggest problem, is when we're not being intensely loved by someone, when we have that neglect, right? And we're not being intensely loved by someone, we don't think, because this is the childhood wound, right? We don't think logically like, okay, my subject of love is gone, but I can just love myself. We don't think that that'll work because when we were children, we weren't taught how to self-love. So if we didn't get it from outside, we'd have to look for it outside, right? That makes sense. They should really teach self-love in school. That makes sense. But now that we're older, we're still doing that. We're like, well, if it's not him, a lot of people in love addiction will jump from one to the next, to the next, to the next, because they have a void of self-love. You know, something I've intentionally done in my life is when I go through a breakup now, I make sure I choose me. And I even put things on hold because I need to make sure that my self-love tank is up to par so that I'm not attracting a toxic relationship. I'm not attracting an intensity to help me escape from the former breakup or whatever, right? We have to learn that we can self-soothe in a methodic kind of way by doing these self-care regimens, by retraining ourselves to know how to sit in ourselves when that void of the intensity comes up and we start to have those withdrawal symptoms, what we can do. And I've done many videos on the withdrawal symptoms now, but one of the things we can do when we find ourselves craving that intensity, craving that attraction, craving that thing, know that it comes from emotional neglect and it comes from a lack of affection. So what do we have to do? This sounds logical, right? But I'm just going to say it out loud because we don't think this way naturally. We've not been trained this way. If we're lacking emotions, because we've had emotional neglect, and we're lacking affection, right? What can we actually do in the moment? We can take out a pen and paper and write down how we're feeling, getting really intimate with our own emotions. That's not neglecting your emotions. Neglecting your emotions is looking for the next external outlet. You're neglecting it further. You're telling yourselves, I can't be with my emotions. I need someone else. But you can be. And it's not going to feel good at the moment, but you're going to write out how you feel. You're going to be there for yourself, reparenting. What's the second thing? Affection. What I like to do is I take long-ass awesome baths. Sometimes I do color healing. Sometimes I do sound healing. Sometimes I do fragrances. Whatever the heck I need to feel affection, like I'm being held in a warm blanket, or maybe put on a big blanket and go in front of the fireplace, or have your hot cocoa, or order in your favorite meal. These things are super comforting, and it makes us feel like we are our own affection. And so often we just don't think we can do it for ourselves. We just don't believe it. And the reason we don't believe it is because we've never tried it. And when we have tried it, we've kind of not been present because we're thinking about the other. So if we can be fully present with ourselves and give ourselves that emotional attention, that physical affection, we can start to heal this desire for intense love that sometimes turns toxic. We can start to self-regulate so we don't have that attachment regulation issue called love addiction. Love addiction is when we've had an attachment trauma. So we are dysregulated when we're detached from. We freak out about being detached from because we did not have a consistent attachment. And by doing these little things that I'm talking about, we start to have a healthy attachment to self, and we have a new relationship with emotional health and self-affection. It's huge, you guys. Obviously, I wouldn't talk about it unless I've done it myself. And it's easier than we think. We just have to change our brain and stand there and stand up for ourselves and stand in for ourselves in a way that we never thought was even realistic before. But when you turn off the phone and you turn off the TV and you go in your room or your bathtub or wherever it is that you feel comfortable in front of the fire, and you just sit with yourself and you're intimate with your feelings and you're holding yourself and you're loving yourself, and maybe you have a pet with you or whatever, and you're just like, holy cow, I'm feeling loved. I'm feeling seen. I'm feeling felt. I'm feeling okay. And what you'll start to realize too is I think I'm safe without always attaching to other. We attach to our inner mother. That's what that really is, right? So we're becoming our own parenting. We're reparenting. So I want you guys to try that this week. It's really amazing once you get it down. You won't do it perfect at first, but over time, as you're consistent, you have a consistent attachment to self, you'll start to feel different about the loves that you crave. You'll start to want something more balancing, more calming, more collaborative instead of intense and just all over the place, right? So try this. Before I go, I want to mention that Emotional Rehab, which will absolutely be an amazing guide if you're dealing with this, is open right now for enrollment. Class will start January 2nd. You do it at your own pace, but it is a 12-week program. If you've already done emotional rehab and you've done that inner child work and you've done that sort of revamping the true self, then you need to jump into shadow work, which is also open for enrollment right now, where we do the mother wounds, the father wounds, the tribal wounds, and come into your power and your higher purpose. Those two are open now. I will be opening my small group coaching called The Inner Work starting in February. So if you want to get on that wait list, that is below. Also, the Truth Room, my monthly membership for highly sensitive people, is open. We meet every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It is a group of people around the world who are highly sensitive, who make you feel like you found where you fit and you find where you finally belong. That link is also below. And there's one more thing I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, my Boundaries Bootcamp course, which everyone who has any emotional wounds or relationship issues needs boundaries. That course, that waitlist is open. That will be opening soon as well. Not sure of the date yet. So just check all the links below. Coaching and all of that is also available. I think we're booked up until mid-January 2022, but you can check it out. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I love you guys and have an amazing week.